All right, Chelsea,
Brian,
what do we got going on today?
we are debriefing our infamous alien or robot, this or that episode.
I don't know if you pay attention to YouTube, the clips that go up there, but the uh, YouTube, what do they call it over there? Shorts?
Mm-hmm.
That's our biggest one yet, is
Oh.
sex with an alien or a robot.
Oh, I felt like that was some really solid content. We're both thoughtful enough that we'll take that question very seriously and not just have a gut answer.
Well, and that wasn't even a question you or I came up with. That was one that
Oh.
luckily we had some people in watching the live and they submitted some really good questions for us and
Mm-hmm.
we had some fun with it, I thought.
That was fun. I'm laughing rethinking it. So if anyone watching this has not yet seen that episode, it's worth it. The whole arch of the episode, or arc is the right word there, was very important. I don't think that segment would have been so fun and interesting had we not had the other questions earlier.
In terms of having the questions submitted by others, you don't think it would have been a good one, or
No, I think if you just started with would you rather have sex with an alien versus a robot? That's what? But in the context of Brian and I were already thinking through some pretty serious questions that Brian presented, which had us in a serious mindset and also a deep mindset, which I
well,
think then led the silly question. We took it very seriously. We went pretty deep on that question.
let's go over just real briefly
Oh,
some of the
yeah.
questions that my co-host came up with.
Wait, I have to, I'll add, no, you did the questions first. Sorry, I'll take that back.
So the first one, loud versus noisy neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and then embarrassed or afraid was another one. Babies dressed as animals or animals as humans. And as I was editing that particular one, I didn't catch it as I said my answer because I said I voted for animals dressed as humans, but then I
Mm-hmm.
picked an Ewok for a dog,
I know
Ewok
that.
costume,
That's what we all said.
which is still very cute. I
It
don't know if
is.
you've seen that one before.
I have. It's just that an Ewok is not exactly a human.
And then that got us talking about evolution within the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe humans and Ewoks evolved from a specific Wookiee or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, Talking to strangers versus Instagram influencers bad content, something to that effect. I'm just going off the notes as I was
Yeah.
editing.
Yeah, yeah. He said talking to strangers at a party or talking to Instagram influencers who share misinformation.
Snakes or spiders,
Mm-hmm.
rich and famous versus poor and unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have here furries and vampires, but that wasn't you. That was
That's Amanda.
Amanda. Yeah. Um, I'm look. Do you remember? Now I can't even read my writing.
You had
A
some more
few,
questions
a
thrown
few
in there.
homestead bundles
Mm-hmm.
ones that were kind of fun, and then I did get a comment from somebody wanting to know the time mark for the homestead bundles from somebody that I'm not off the top of my head. I apologize. I it's hard for me to associate accounts with specific people sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always on the lookout for undercover homesteaders. I, well, let me homestead bundlers, not homesteaders, because homesteaders is a big group. I have no problems with homesteaders at all. It's the homestead bundle thing. But there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them that are kind of undercover that are out, kind of like Men in Black. And this one person was like, "Well, I want to listen to that section of it." And I don't know why. I was like, maybe it could be somebody that just finds that funny, which it's all funny, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But it also could be one of them, and they're like, "Oh, we need to shut them down." But do you? So, how do you think the episode? I mean, do you think that was a home run? What's your thoughts on it?
So you left off any of the questions you asked.
Well, I was just focusing in on the questions that you had asked. I mean, the questions that I asked: date night in, date night out. If
Mm-hmm.
you can go back in time or forward in time for a day, what would we do?
Mm-hmm.
Um, to love and have lost someone, or to never know true love throughout your
Mm-hmm.
life. Die too early or die way too late.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I can't read the bottom part of my notes, and then the paper is torn. I think my wife had to use like notes or something on it, so she
There
removed one
was
part of that.
something about putting away a bad guy with
Oh,
illegal methods
yeah.
versus letting them go free.
That was one that I specifically was thinking about you. Well, all of them I thought about you when I was coming up with those questions.
Mm-hmm.
But that one there, knowing how you enjoy digging into things that are not necessarily black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a question of, would you do something illegal or wrong to put away somebody that would be considered a bad guy, or would you play by the books and watch them go free? So
Yep.
we were across the spectrum on questions.
We really, honestly, that was my favorite part looking back is how wide the spectrum was. And I really think our silly questions would not have been as fun had we not already been thinking deeply by some of the deeper questions. And originally, so I actually said I categorized my questions as either obscure or you're picking between a bad thing and a bad thing.
Hmm.
Because I was trying to present hard scenarios. And so I was like, okay, I either want it super weird and you have to think just because it's a weird question,
Right.
or there are two terrible options. And you're like, well, I hate both of these options. And that was every question that I asked, I felt like held that format. And I was like, what are the other formats available? And then you came on. I was like, oh, that's a whole nother format that I didn't even think of, which was like pretty deep, intense questions. And I was like, oh, like loved and lost or never to have loved at all. It's a pretty deep question. And I was like, oh,
Well,
there
it
we go.
is. Some people may look at something like that and roll their eyes or whatever, but it's a legitimate question in that, would you, again, not to bring things down or whatever, but let's say you have a child and you lose that child.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back on something like that, eh, would you wish to have not had the child
Mm-hmm. And I took
and
it
go through that
seriously in
pain?
that way. Yeah, that was how serious I took it for our discussion. But I think that was required. So had we only done silly questions, I think we would have been really surface level with the silly questions, and I don't think would have gone as deeply. So I enjoyed it. I don't think the audience enjoyed the serious questions,
Yeah,
but
they
I
were
think
kind
they
of
were
getting on to me
required.
about getting too heavy and bringing everybody down and needing some medication, some uppers or something.
Yeah, you were getting some hate.
But you bring up a good point in a sense that if it was just one person that had come up with those questions,
Mhm,
is something like that, I think that is the benefit of doing a show with somebody else, in addition to also curating things from an audience at the time. So then you're
mhm.
getting a broad spectrum of questions that are surface level, deep, happy, sad, funny,
Yeah.
and a lot of it, regardless of whether they were super serious or just super fun, the for me the entertainment was finding out how you would answer each one of them.
Mhm.
So I
Yep.
I thought that was pretty good, and it makes, to be honest with you, of all the episodes that we have done, on the editing side of things, to clip things out, that makes that type of episode is so much easier, because within the conversation you have a start and a stopping point with the question
Mhm,
being asked and then us moving to the next question, so that in between is going to be a clip, and that
mhm.
makes it so much easier than some of our other shows to where I'm like, oh man, it's really hard trying to find what section do I want to make as a clip, and not only that, how do I shorten that clip up to fit within the different platforms of TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And that I can see why some of these big shows, if you watch podcast shows on YouTube or whatever, they have a team of people.
Hmm.
And the guys that are working, they're not necessarily the on air kind of talent, the faces that you see or the people that are talking. It's the people behind the scenes that the skill level required, I totally respect now, because
Yeah.
the editing and making cuts and having that all make sense and have enough context within a certain amount of time, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm not good at it.
I will say the pace at which we're doing this, especially the 2 a week, is so much that I think, like, I definitely thought I'd have more time for editing. And even today and yesterday, I struggle to find time for this. So it's a challenge. I think that's going to be for sure a consideration as you think about, like, what's the, I don't know, what's pace, like, what's the sequencing in when we want to be recording, and then from there, like, Brian, are you comfortable doing all of the editing, because you've been doing all the editing? I just kind of show up and talk, people.
Well, and we go back to the reasons why that we decided that, yeah, let's go ahead and try to tackle a project like this. One, to have some fun
Mm-hmm.
and hang out and do stuff like this is entertaining, but then also to acquire a set of skills that you and I can both take
Mm-hmm.
away from this particular project and maybe even use it elsewhere, whether it's in your business, your coaching, online videos, and the editing, and gives you some ideas on how to do some stuff, and then for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
um but yeah, I it's fun and interesting, but then like I've said over the last few weeks, it does get kind of frustrating when you have some limiting factors with computer setup, and things just don't you know go right. Even the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of this episode, within 12 minutes, I can hear popping sounds.
Really?
Again, it's coming from my end, and it's a known issue within StreamYard and the limitations of my laptop. And it just drives me nuts because I don't want that. And there's really nothing that I can do to get it fixed. Does it bother anybody else? Probably not, but it bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can't hear it when we're recording. So it's on your end because it's wherever it's locally being saved or something?
yeah, I hear it. It's like a little static crackle every
Mm.
now and then. And for me, when it does really bother me is on the editing side of things, because when you edit and you cut from a large, like you'll see on some of the clips that I do, you have you and I are on the screen at the same time, and then we get the solo shot that I'll cut to.
Mm-hmm.
When it cuts, sometimes within editing, you cause an audio pop by cutting like that, and I've learned so much about how to do that. But I'm still getting the pops because it's not necessarily from cutting from the big video here to a solo shot. It's hard for me to explain. It's super frustrating because I can't get
Yeah.
rid of it, and then it just makes all the effort that I've done. I get really frustrated and I get upset
Yeah.
because I can't fix it, and I don't want it to be not amateurish, because I mean obviously this isn't super professional anyways, but there's a level of smoothness that I definitely want to have on this. So I don't know.
Yeah. Totally. Now that doesn't help
Yeah.
with the editing and all the other work that we're doing. Um, Logistically, what are you taking away? Like, obviously, that's challenging, but if you were to go higher level without the logistics of the show, what are your takeaways right now?
From the project as a whole, or
Mm-hmm.
specifically with the Project as a whole, I'm taking away the from a creative sense. I've mentioned before. I sometimes get into my own bubble of how things look, how they sound, and things get kind of stale. And sometimes maybe what I think in my head and what I'm trying to portray or ideas that I come up with, it gets stale because it's just from one person. It does help having somebody else that you're working on a project with, that you
Mhm.
can bounce ideas back and forth or go with their idea and see how that plays out. You know, there's
Mhm.
several times to where I'm like, okay, Chelsea, you just pick, and then I'm like, let's do it, because I wouldn't come up with like the questions. Let's say, for example, we were kind of laughing, like I wouldn't have come up with any of those questions. Like it wouldn't pop in my head.
Mhm.
So that added to the show in a sense that, like you said, we had a whole bunch of questions with this or that that were fun, funny, deep, sad, happy,
Mhm.
and doing that with somebody else absolutely helps you become more creative and think outside of the box a lot more.
Mhm. It's an interesting thing that we could apply to other scenarios, like the just making sure we're collaborating on the content we're presenting. But I almost like that we collaborated live the most. Like, had you and I actually aligned on our questions before going live,
Mm-hmm.
we probably would have become aware of that pattern and fixed it.
Right.
Like, oh, well, we're both, because I noticed my pattern right away. I came up with a pattern and my brain tends to work in patterns. So I came up with a pattern and then I just replicated it and it made life easier for me. Like, once I observed, like, okay, this or that questions could be obscure or they could both be crappy options. And then I just replicated that. If we had talked, I would have presented that to you. You would have noticed that your questions were really deep and really intense.
Mm-hmm.
And we either would have, I think we would have gone a certain direction. Instead, it was kind of fun just to like watch it live occur.
Right.
And then you asked your next question and we were like, oh my God, they just keep getting more intense. But like that was the funny part. Like I think we would have corrected that had we not done it live.
Yeah. Whether that's good or bad, I don't think it is. It's just different. The outcome, as you just set it out there, the outcome could have been different if we had basically collaborated beforehand. Just say, okay, what are your questions? What are mine? And then we
Mm.
planned them to be like, well, let's just make sure none of them are the same or whatever. It was kind of like ripping off a band-aid, and we threw ourselves out there, and I truly had no idea what you were presenting with questions, and you didn't either, and then
No.
both were surprised with the ones that came in for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a different experience, and one to where if you ran a show like that and then you collaborated a little more beforehand and tried to quote polish things up before you actually went live on air, the show would have been completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Just a different form of entertainment. I
Mm-hmm.
like how we're doing a lot of the stuff to where we're including people in on the production side of things
Mm-hmm.
and showing very raw and rough cuts of stuff. I think it's fun that we kind of scramble live on some of these shows and we're just kind of figuring out as we go, and then that they don't work out perfectly as much as it does frustrate me
Mm-hmm.
when things don't work out. But it's things that happen to a lot of people that do stuff like this, and I think for other people that are new to it as well, to see it happen to somebody else, I think makes them feel a lot better, like, oh my God, I'm not the only person that can't do this stuff.
Yeah. Learning together. I also, this is what I think interests me about like a potential improv episode. I enjoy the extemporaneous nature of things. So to me, it doesn't feel like scrambling. I don't know. I like the do it live concept. And so maybe that's why I said better. I do agree. Honestly, it would just be different. Like, had we collaborated ahead of time, polished the questions, and then come in and discuss them, it would just be different.
Mm-hmm.
what I think I enjoy most is like the authenticity in an answer when you're not allowed to polish it. And I found it hard to do. Like, we've talked about this, but I do different podcasts with different people on a wide difference in topics, normally more professional. And I prefer to listen when it is authentic and when it's less planned and less polished. And like, we're actually seeing a human interaction happen in front of us. And I think that's the kind of beauty that I'm enjoying is, wow, I was most enjoying observing the questions you were asking me and knowing that they were so different from the categories I picked. And then, I loved our audience questions. They were fun, but those were also obvious to me. Like, I could have guessed that the audience is going to throw out silly questions. What was so cool was I think you and I we had two categories that weren't silly, that were just totally unique that we came up with. And then the audience questions were kind of classic. They made it fun and they were silly, but it's like, yeah, of course, you're going to ask like silly. And then you and I tried to be a little bit more creative than the classic, like, would you have sex with this or that? Like, let's be creative. So I don't know. I think that is lost when you polish.
Yeah, the question that comes up is, okay, then is something like that being done for just you and I? Or are we performing for an audience or people to watch later on? And when I say that, I'm being serious in the sense that eventually, if this kind of keeps going for a long period of time, there's a lot of times to where we don't have a lot of people watching. Like now, there's nobody here watching the live, which is fine. It's funny. It's funny to make a comment about it, but over a long period of time, when you start to get a foothold and you start getting more people kind of watching, I'm curious as to how that would affect either you or I in when we do these shows. Is it just Brian and Chelsea, and let's say it's a bunch of your friends over at the house and you guys are hanging out on a Friday night playing that game? Or is it different because we're doing it for other people? Like we're performing for other people, and how much of that is the real Brian and Chelsea?
Yeah. No, that's totally fair. Because to some point, it's also like, why are we recording this live at all? Like, if we're recording it live and if we're publishing it publicly, we have to be concerned with the audience, I think, in my opinion. Or we could just have phone calls.
Right. You see, I just did my mute thing. Like I'm over here. I swallowed wrong.
No, I didn't. I was like deep
and so
in thought.
I'm like over here struggling. So
Brian's
I'm like
choking,
clicking on my mute, and I'm over here choking and coughing, but I'm trying to keep my visual. And my eyes are watering.
I missed it. But I was like thinking, so it's kind of very like introspective in my.
But there's times in a show like that, if there's other people on, I feel like there's a little added pressure that I am having to perform and make things interesting, as opposed to if it was just you and I kind of goofing off, hanging out. Like right now with nobody on, I feel like it's just, I feel a little more relaxed in a sense that, we're just kind of going over some details, kind of talking like Brian and Chelsea would talk. And I'm not necessarily concerned about, oh my God, there's X amount of people watching and we've got to be doing something, and we can't have, any kind of silence or look like, we don't know what we're doing, which is entertaining and fun also. But for a show of what we're kind of doing here for the 24 episodes, I like how, for me, it seems like it's not as polished. It's a little more, you're seeing what really happens when you throw this together.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, totally. So the other thing that's coming to mind is or something that I think is complicating this, we don't know the purpose of what we're doing, which makes it very hard because we don't have a North Star or a focus. And so the other piece I'd say, like, okay, if we were a longer lasting existing show, podcast, what is it? We'd be able to say, like, okay, well, this is the sort of like essence of the show. These are like the values of the show. This is like the goal of the show. So even if the audience is pushing us in one direction or another, we still have something to point back to.
Right.
Without having that, it's also challenging because it's like, okay, we're either being pushed by my preferences, your preferences, or the audiences. That's sort of it right now, which is okay. But I think that's where like that would stay in check. Like, was the audience on Friday moving the direction of the show? Absolutely. But there wasn't a preset direction either,
Right. But I think in terms of your North Star, in my head, I know what our North Star is for what we're doing with the 24 episodes.
Sure.
In a sense that this is something to where it's a roulette wheel of different various random ideas that we're kicking around, as well as analyzing those on the back end. We've kind of, as the show kind of got going, we were like, okay, well, every other episode we kind of break down the episode beforehand, and then we plan again for the next episode and talk about how things are going. How to neatly package that up and explain that to other people. Yeah, I don't have a good way to market that. I don't know. But for me, I'm not that concerned with it because that's not the purpose of, for me, it's not necessarily the purpose of doing the 24 episodes. For me, the 24 episodes doing this with you is to get experience of doing a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And to see how it plays out. So game shows, talking, just random different things, whether we're going to do a, what's the Wigs game or whatever it is, just to get an idea of, okay, how does that work? What goes on in planning it and editing it and getting it out there. And then at the end of this, if this were to continue at some point or down the road, maybe you take it and you start working out with somebody else on the business side of things or like for fun or whatever. You come up with, okay, well, this is our show and it's a tighter niche, as far as like, is it a movie show? So all you do is talk about movies.
Yeah.
What
though? So I totally agree with you. Like the purpose of the show is just be a roulette, try different things and analyze them. See what we like, what we don't like really show the production behind the show. Totally agree with all that. I think we do have a nice, easy flow now. It's like more predictable. Like the next episode is a content episode. The next episode, we came up with that all in the first episode too. It's like we have a plan. We're executing against the plan. How does the audience then play a role? Because like what you were saying with adapting what we're doing more for the audience or being weary of that, like how does that play a role given the direction of the show we have?
I don't know if I can answer that because we don't have a consistent audience to base that off of every episode. I mean, depending on how we'll have 2 or 3 consistent people for like the performance shows, right? That'll come by. When we start, if we were to start pulling in more people watching the lives and everything, I think that would be kind of a different case. Again, for me, I would like to produce some kind of a show out of this that incorporates viewers that are there live with us. And whether or not that is in just a purely live type show or whether it's in a podcast form. We talked about, well, what's the difference with podcast and live? You guys are doing lives, but you're saying it's a podcast. Yeah, it's all part of this whole grab bag of content ideas that we're kind of throwing out all the toys on the table. Chelsea's come over. We're both 5 years old. I'm gonna bring all the toys you got. I'll bring all my Star Wars stuff out. Let's just throw it on the table and make some game out of it. That's how I'm kind of seeing this. So I don't know. I mean, do you have an answer for your question?
No, I was just curious because you brought up concerned with like the audience's perspective several times. And that was where I was like, well, to make sure we stay true to the show, be helpful to remember the North Star for the show. And you were right. Like we do have a North Star for the show. It's a roulette episode. That makes it hard because that means anything goes as long as we're trying something new.
It
Could
makes
be an
it hard, but
argument there.
it also, I think, makes it easy because we're
Yeah.
not pigeonholed into. It allows us to kind of play with anything.
Yep. I I would just I think the only boundary I would set is actually avoiding repetition.
Hmm. And we've addressed that because
Hmm.
what was it, 2 episodes ago? We're like, well, let's, and I forget the schedule of shows that we've had, but we're like, okay, we just did a um, what was the one where we asked each other like to get to know
Digging
you, or
deeper.
the digging deeper with Castle.
Hmm.
And so I think you had mentioned something effective. Well, we did a show to where it was just kind of you and I answering. Let's move it to something else, and then um, I think like for this game show, or then we flipped it to the building the studio, build the
Hmm.
studio, and that's completely kind of different. And so yeah, I think we're both on the same page, and like we're at least conscious of what type of shows that we have done and trying to do something kind of different.
Yeah.
But at some point, there's going to be some carryover with what we do.
That I mean, carryover for sure, but I think that presents a fun challenge, the avoiding repetition concept, and also then does put a boundary on the audience. It's like if the audience is pushing us in one way or another, even if it's only our 5 people, our 5 loyal followers, we can go with their direction as long as it's not repetitive. So if everybody's like, oh, I loved the alien versus robot talk, let's do that again. That's not the purpose of this
Right.
series. So we won't do that, right?
Right.
We could do it again in different formats, in different ways, in different mediums, but we won't purely do this or that again, nor would we like have exactly that topic again. If we're following the roulette episode idea.
I busted out laughing editing the section to where you were talking about the pleasure machine.
I couldn't think of
And
the
like
word I wanted.
you kept cracking yourself up through that whole episode. Like you would say something, and again, you had such golden nuggets of content through that whole thing. And I think you carried the show for us for sound bites and all that good stuff. But like you would say something, you would crack yourself up, and but again, and then there you go. So that's something to where I enjoy not having to be like I. It's fun to watch and have somebody else be able to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't be as fun or funny if I had said it.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah, well,
No, it was fun. It was all the timing of the question was so good. Like it was timed so well where we were in a different mindset and we switched gear. It was I was like the whole thing. It was the whole arc of the show, I think.
yeah, I think how it just kind of played out as we were going, I thought it did really well.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that show because it allows us to edit and push out content down the road also that's easy to find and edit and get it out there. Um, what do you feel like? I'm kind of curious. So you had talked to your sister, and I've thought
Yeah.
about this since you mentioned it, and then I wanted to make sure that I asked you.
Yeah.
Does what other people think of you, this is kind of a general random question for life, but I'm using this particular example. So your sister was like, what are you doing? What is this? What are you guys doing? What are you and Brian doing with this? And when you said that, that may not have been her tone or whatever. That's why I asked her. I was like, well, how concerned did she sound like when she said that?
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that it's gone through my mind that like I'm curious, in your life, do you kind of go to the beat of your own drum, or does what other people, and maybe it could be specific people, maybe it is your sister or your family, if they
Yeah.
think something about you, does that course correct you, or does that reinforce that you're going to do what you're going to do? Like, is Chelsea like?
Sure. I I think it is kind of naive for anyone to say they go to the beat of their own drum, if I'm being totally honest. Like, I think very, very, very few people do it just because we live in a society and a community and like everything we do kind of impacts others and it's very intertwined. So I definitely care. I would never say I don't care. I'm pretty strong-willed and like strong-headed, and so rather determined in the decisions I make. So I'd say I'm not the most impacted. But yeah, I don't know. Probably a mix. I care. I'm thoughtful that my decisions impact others, but also, you know, I will do what I want to do in the end, and I'm comfortable if what I want to do is not like widely supported. Definitely supported by the people that like I care most about.
Right.
But what would you say
About you or about me?
about you?
Oh, because I had gone through of what I know of you, and it could be completely wrong. Like I for whatever reason I've picked from you, and then I'll talk about me. Is you're kind of like when people refer to Chelsea, oh yeah, that's just Chelsea, just kind of doing just some different things.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily get it, but yeah, she just does
That
different.
level, that's fine at that level. I just more like broadly, I get so like introspective about it, but in a broad way, I think it's
Well, it's okay. So you just okay. So your arm just went up, and the tattoos on you. So
yeah,
that's a good thing. Is
yeah.
that something to where you were like, that's so Chelsea
I
within
mean,
your
probably
family?
other people. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's also so that's what I mean. It's like there's levels. Tattooing my own body does not impact you. You know, like coloring my hair, which it's often colored, but it fades really fast. Not this is natural, but like fun colors like blue doesn't impact you. How I care for my yard impacts my neighbors. So I think generally I'm definitely considering how others think about me throughout life as I'm making decisions. And I think that anyone who says they aren't is either lying or a hermit. Like, short of you living in the middle of the woods and not consuming anything on the internet, you do care how people think about you, is kind of my opinion. And like, you're lying if you say you don't. I don't let it impact me so much as like I have tattoos. But that also, I have tattoos because I do care how people think about me, and the tattoos support that. Like, if it definitely suggests something. Like, if people see me with tattoos, they're going to make assumptions, and I generally like the assumptions they make from those. So it's like, yeah, that was on purpose. Like, they're visible to you because I want you to have some assumptions about me. They're like, oh, she's a little alternative. Normally I get like, you kind of seem liberal. And I'm like, why would you say that? And like, well, you have all those tattoos. You seem like a liberal hippie. And it's like, well, it's better than you assuming alternative things about me. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think how you present yourself, what you wear, like how I carry myself, like that's all impacting other people's views of me. And so unless I was walking around with a paper bag living in the middle of the woods, I don't know. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. Again,
Yeah.
I'm learning about you a little bit more as we go through and do a lot of these shows, and just like right now with you explaining that, I just real briefly for me, if however I would answer that question would be, I understand what you're saying as far as most people have in the back of their heads, again, on this spectrum of how others view you, how that affects what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what just happened to our?
Nothing on my end. Something weird happened.
That was weird. Um, I think for the most part, especially in the last 15 years or something, most
Mm-hmm.
people that know me are like, that's Brian and Nate. I mean, like the beard podcast, just all kinds of just random stuff. Tossing salad podcast, garden voyeur.
Mm-hmm.
All things that I'm just like, it's all in good fun. And oh my, I can't. Then you don't like it, you don't like it. It doesn't
Yeah.
affect me. But I will say, I don't do things, and I hope that it doesn't affect other people in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So, in kind of like what you were saying, I don't. Whatever I do, I try not to have it. I'm not in your face about it,
Yeah. Sure.
unless you've done something to where I deem that somebody needs to stand up and be in your face about it. You know what I'm saying?
Per the earlier example.
But for the most part, I don't go around trying to cause issues with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go around trying to like I don't want what I do
Mm-hmm.
to affect or have an effect on anybody else. But
In
I
a negative
also
way.
in a negative way because
Yeah.
I just I don't want that. I don't want people to
Yeah.
hate me. But
Yeah.
but on this talking about that, I don't necessarily very little of me is affected by how people think about me.
Mm.
So it's hard to describe. I don't go around actively trying to push myself on other people or what I want to do or this is how it should be done. And for the most part, most of my stuff is just I enjoy it and whatever you think, fine. You either like it, you don't like it, but it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But like you said, I mean, certain people, I'd be like, okay, yeah, with my family here within this house, I do that does register a little bit more. Anybody
Yeah.
outside of this house, probably not. Very
Mm-hmm.
few.
Mm-hmm.
So
And for the record, the tone was, I'm so sorry. I've been really busy and I haven't had any time for anything extra and I missed everything. What are you doing with Brian?
see, I
The tone was like overwhelmingly supportive and just curious. It was not questioning at all. But my response was more kidding. It was like, well, clearly you have no idea what we're doing if you've not watched anything. And that was so I actually was responding in a tongue-in-cheek way, but her tone was actually, how can I support you? What are y'all
but
doing? Sorry, I had no idea.
you and I don't really know either. And we can, but
I
again,
know.
it's just hard to explain. We
I was
kind
more
of
just like, you gotta
know,
watch to know. You gotta
right?
watch to know, Brianna. Like, clearly you're not on the inside.
But I guess I automatically go to a more negative type, not negative, but like judgmental, more for you than for me. Like, God, what I wonder if people are like
Oh
Chelsea's
no.
friends or family or something are like, what are you doing?
I mean, they started that when I started the garden account. So at this point, we're on a spiral downhill. Like you can. But yeah, they don't touch it. Like if they see a weird reel I do, I'm like, why do you follow it? Like, you're not into it, don't follow me. I'm not requiring you to follow.
Has there been any well, let's say for this last episode,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not too big of a question because then we're going to have to figure out what we're doing for this weekend.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Um, is there anything that you replied to on our last this or that? How you answered that bothers
Uh,
you or that you wish that you hadn't said?
no, I actually debriefed the episode with my mother-in-law and husband right after because I thought it was funny. And both Brianna and my husband agreed with Alien and disagree with Robot. And I was like, well, you're wrong, objectively.
Wait, but I'm saying more like
That's
when
what
you
I
say
mean.
something funny. I mean I think it's hilarious, and I think it's just something like we would say around just close friends, just having a good time on a Friday night or something.
Yeah.
When you said something about an alien and uh, big parts, I don't know where those are going to go. I forget the quote, but it was
Yeah.
one to where I was
We
like,
don't know the anatomy of aliens. We have no idea what the anatomy is. So I have no idea why anyone's interested in aliens.
well, and then for me, I was like, that's all I could think of about was, okay, that would make a great clip. And I'm
Well, that's funny.
curious, like if you remembered any of the things that you said or something like that to where you're like, oh, I don't know
Oh
if I want
no.
to live on the internet
No.
with those quotes or whatever, if that bothers you
Oh no, I discussed them.
after the fact.
I seriously, that's why that was my answer. I discussed it with my mother-in-law and husband right after. It doesn't bother me at all. I thought it was hilarious. I am a little appalled that both him and Brianna gave the wrong answer. I still stand by alien as just the wrong answer in this question. But yeah, no, I don't think at all. It's funny. It's all in good humor. And then I think more importantly for topics like this, it's just like, do you have a sense of humor? Are you funny? Are you able to have? But right after I got off the episode, it was only like 9:30 at night. So I went downstairs and we watched an episode of Love is Blind. And they were like, how was your podcast? I was like, it was funny. This is what we discussed. And then I went through some of the this or that's and we all discussed what our answers were to them. It's like, clearly I have no shame if I'm like, yeah, let's talk about this right after. In general, when it comes up like randomly on an Instagram story, I do get some funny questions that are just like, what is this? And my answer is like, gotta watch to find out.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been some juicy stuff that I've said here and there, or some things that I've done to be funny that maybe are taken out of context or whatever, which again, that's part of it, I guess. I will always go down and say I'm not out trying to convert anybody. So my things are always like, I'm hoping that those that find what I do as being funny, that's the content that I'm kind of creating. And I'm not trying to convince somebody why it's funny. Kind of like with the Tossing Salad podcast. My audience isn't ones to where I spend several messages back and forth explaining why, or do I not know what tossing salad means. Mine are my audience for something like that are people that are like, oh my God, that's totally funny. I totally get it. And it may be just a handful of people,
Yeah.
but that's who, then those are the people that I'm kind of doing the stuff for as well as for myself. But I'm not out trying to explain it. I try not, if I have to explain it too much, and I got into it a little bit with a few people where I had to try to explain. I was like, you know what? I quit trying to explain it, because if I have to explain it, either I didn't do a good job in the humor, or that's just not the humor that they have. And that's with anything.
Totally.
So, all right. Well, so what, we got 15 minutes or so here. What's the plan for the weekend?
All right. I have our
bring
list.
Up our thing?
Yes. I have it up. I have been thinking about this, but I'm not sure. Did you see
what I added to our little note thing?
You did. So
and I just have it. Here, let me. And not that I'm like putting different colors or anything. I want something to where you know that I added it, so you see it real quick, and then you can organize it however, and then put the right color. And I put black because black's the easiest color for me to see. I tried to match it with the colors you had there, and I couldn't tell the difference in the colors.
Yep. I think we need to add, and I can add it. Like add a notes section. I'll add it after this as to not. But I took notes as we were talking on this or that, and kind of some of the things that we thought from that. And so I'll just add like I'll adjust this slightly when we're done, just so I don't have to move it around so much. But my thought would be like some sort of like we've completed like category over here. That's like completed episodes, notes about them, episodes yet to come. In terms of adding notes, so this is where instead of a Miro board, like a Trello board would be better, because a Trello board you could like click in.
But don't you think there's some way we could do that here? Because you like, do you see the two things that I put up above the Post-its? Like scroll up.
I see your comment.
Oh, you do see the two comments? Like, right, yeah. I didn't know.
That's what I was speaking to.
Like, I was just playing with the things here, but I was like, okay, what if I came up with some ideas for improv night? Where do I put that for us to organize our ideas? We may not do it tonight or next week, but I want to, if I come up with an idea for it, I want to throw it into something. And this is where my organizational skills are very much lacking, because I don't know how do I do that? or how should we do that? And you don't have to come up with the answer now.
I was hoping there was something native in the app.
I'm sure there has to be.
It's not really the layout of this. So if we're limited to, as I think we are, just visually this app, I'd probably say stacking sticky notes. So like this is personal opinions, and then you just make a few sticky notes and put the slightly under it, the same way you'd see like a sticky note stack.
Okay.
We do have other shapes, so you could change the shape.
Like, should we have maybe redesign to where improv night is at the top, and then our ideas for what we have, we just put a sticky note underneath. But then does that... We can come up with structure for that later on. That's just something I wanted to kind of touch base with you on a production side. It's not something we have to kind of do live. But just so that, because I can come up with some ideas here and there for different episodes, and then I'll end up forgetting about it. So if I had a way to where I'm like, ooh, that'll be great for Star Wars follow-up night. Because even something like that, I was like, the new Ahsoka trailer just came out. So I just had like an idea. So I was like, well, where do I put that? How do I do that?
Yeah, there's this like workflow concept, but it's all just going to be visually working off what we already have. And if anyone's more familiar with Miro who's watching, let me know. But to my understanding, it's not like an Asana or a Trello, like especially in Asana, like I can click in and then click in and then click in and then click in. And so it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper, the layers. I'm not sure there is a layering capability to this. I'll have to look up for it after.
Or if there's another app that you're using that you think would do this better. Like there's something like I want to start doing this for other things that I have going on, because it's a great way for me to visually organize myself. But I also don't want to spend time on this if we're going to change it to something else.
I do not, from what I know, I don't think there's a better visual. There is a better information storing, but not a better visual. So like I would probably lean to, if we wanted to store information better, like switching to docs or something, because it can be longer, or just layering sticky notes. Like that's the way they have it, is like sticky packs. So we would just like, wow.
We'll figure it out.
How did that get here? You see that?
Yeah. It's like a hyperlink.
No idea. But I would just go like this and then have like the top one green, and under the sticky note have longer notes.
And then I guess we would just have to kind of put in a little more space in between all of them.
And then we can cluster.
Oh, that might be it then. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, but it'll be something like that. I would stick this. I do think is the best visual. Like it's like a whiteboard format. If we're going to be doing this live, I think we want to stick with this visual, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, we'll just have to dig a little deeper. At a minimum, I will restructure this. So there's one category that's like episodes we haven't done yet. Another category, it's like episodes we have done with our notes on them.
Yep.
That's easy to do. And then I'll figure out something. For our next episode, though, in terms of categories, we have not done, what does LIB mean?
Love is Blind.
Oh.
I mean, we have been binging and catching up, and like every episode, I'm like, oh, this.
We're going to have 2 episodes left to go. We could totally do that. I'm ready.
So, and this is just part of the structure of future shows too. It's like, do we want to maybe on our production episodes, like the first 10 minutes of a midweek show, we talk about random current events? So we could throw in a Love is Blind or something. You know what I'm saying? Instead of having like a full episode of just that. I don't know.
I don't have an idea for the next episode. And that just got me really excited. So I'm waiting to like, let's just do Love is Blind as the next episode. Because I definitely have an hour's worth of things to discuss with you on that. But I haven't finished it yet. So I will finish it. And then we can discuss, because I have 2 episodes left.
Yeah, we just got to the where they're living together.
Oh no, you're too far behind. Are you gonna be able to finish by the weekend? No.
It's hard to. Well, probably not because we watch one episode a night.
Yeah, and I can't. I hate discussing. If I know the ending, it'll be too hard.
Well, then we'll save it for next Friday.
Okay.
So that's good. We at least have. So we're now planned out to 2 weeks from now for next
Gotta
Friday.
do
So what
Love
do you
is
want to do?
Blind.
Like, first of all, are we free for this weekend? And are we okay for another Friday night?
I'm free. I could do Friday or
You don't have
Sunday.
another bonfire or other fun stuff that you do with neighbors or friends?
That's where, if we can keep it Friday or Sunday, and I'll confirm the schedule for the weekend, if that's okay. But
This
I'll try
was
to confirm like today, tomorrow.
what was that? Was it yesterday or something?
I
And
know.
Chelsea was like, I feel like I'm always like just waiting for Chelsea to organize her social calendar around this. And then she finds out like we're trying to do something. She's like, oh, but I've got a life and everything. She's like, well, we've got like this spur of the moment fun bonfire with neighbors. And so I was, oh, that's fine. Just let me know. Okay, I'll let you know. And then like hours go by and it's like getting close to the time that we're supposed to be getting together. I'm like, did you hear? Oh yeah. I can't do it. I totally forgot
know,
about
I
you.
feel so. No, I didn't totally forget. I didn't totally forget. It was just evolving. Like I want to be open to do the bonfire. And we were at dinner, and I was like, "Are we doing a bonfire later?" I kind of need to know. When I saw your chat, and they were like, "Oh yeah, let's do the bonfire," and I was like,
And
"Okay,
that's why
sorry."
I reduced the percentage chance of this succeeding by the 24th episode. I said something like 75 down to 35%.
I do that. That is the one thing that I find hard. There's always a night every weekend that I found that I'm free, but I hate committing too early and then like I can't engage in like a social engagement.
It's FOMO. I get it.
I know it's not
Guarding on the
great.
Prairie had meetings, or else she would have been there from the beginning. Could have helped us out. So what are we thinking for this Friday potentially? Once you figure out your social calendar.
Yeah, Friday or Sunday, I'll double check. I think let's avoid the personal opinion one because we've been doing that one for a minute. So what we think, none of those. I'll just cut that out.
Did you just say something like you had an idea that you wanted to do before we start talking Love is Blind?
No, I was
Oh.
going to say I looked at this in anticipation for this conversation and I was not feeling inspired. And then you said Love is Blind. I was like, yes, but you're not there yet. Are you caught up on, well, we don't want to do two of these episodes in a row, but are you caught up on Mandalorian?
Uh, yeah, we're caught up on Mandalorian, and that's another thing within Star Wars that we can certainly talk about at some point. I don't want to give too much away, but I mean,
Yeah.
we have Star Wars Celebration or something going on right now, and all the things that they're releasing and what the outlook is on Star Wars. I mean, we talked about this on our Star Wars live months ago outside of the Brian and Chelsea show. Brian and Chelsea make a podcast show. Sorry, I want to be consistent.
You could also do a community topic of sorts. I don't actually know. Don't address it right now, but I don't actually know what the homestead drama is. So Amanda gave me the hot tip for that this or that question. And I was like, I don't really know what it is. And she's like, just know he doesn't like it. And I was like, okay.
Well, the funny thing on the Homestead Bundle thing, yeah, I mean, I absolutely hate it, but it hasn't even registered with me since the first time it came up. Like this last round of stuff, I don't see it on my feed anymore because I was proactive in blocking half of Instagram that's involved with it. So it doesn't bother me anymore. It's
I've
fun to
never
talk
seen
about.
it. I've never seen it on my feed. I'm not popular enough. They don't even advertise to me.
It's kind of, well, Amanda probably break it down better than I can.
Okay, well, let's not do that. That's just, it's on here for some reason, and I don't know what it is. The other one that could be fun and very timely to do is that
Gardening on the Prairie has.
Oh.
I'm only vaguely informed of the Homestead Bundle, but as a master gardener, I suppose I'm on the side of free info.
Huh?
Yeah. Look, my thing with that
Immediately getting
whole
hyped.
Homestead bundle, whether people want to give away free info or make money, I don't care. If you have information or you're doing something, you're trying to earn a living or make money, that's great. I mean, for me, that has nothing to do with the Homestead bundle.
It's the misinformation, right?
It's not even really the misinformation.
Mm.
It's there is something else behind that whole system that's set up and the people at the top that are doing this. I think it's some kind of like commune type weird shit going on. That's kind of a what are those businesses that pyramid? What are those called?
The multi-level marketing
Yeah,
schemes.
it's shades of everything that is just, and then a whole bunch of accounts that I didn't particularly care for. This is prior to learning that a bunch of these people are involved with it, and then I find out that they were involved with this Homestead bundle. I'm like, of course, because they fit the profile that I do not like. And it's not a personal thing. I think there's something I think there's just something going on behind the scenes.
So, as an option, and it would mostly be you sharing because I don't know a lot about it. I do know enough about multi-level marketing schemes. Another option that could be very, very timely is defining the relationship past garden friends, because this is something you and I are going through and or went through. And Amanda, the ever hopeful gardener, is coming to Atlanta and staying with Brianna, and we're spending all day Saturday together.
Oh, wow.
And we're bringing together, and feel free to DM me after this if you're listening and you're in the Atlanta area and you didn't receive the message. It wasn't intentional, but DM me later. But yeah, organizing essentially everyone in the Atlanta area, gathering who's in the garden Instagram community. So should be a pretty wild and rad day.
See, I can have a whole episode of going over the pros and cons of doing that.
That could be fun, because the other thing that Mike, my husband, and I were talking about, which was interesting in regards to this topic, he was like, oh, that's going to be pretty weird, right? And I was wondering, and my suspicion is actually not that weird. So I work remotely and have been working remotely since 2017, but I used to gather with the people I worked with regularly. And then COVID happened, and we know what happened there. And so the first time that I saw my team in person for the first time, was trippy. It was kind of bizarre. I was hiring people who I had never met, which was something I would never do before all this stuff went down. And so Mike was like, oh, it's going to be so weird meeting everyone. And I was like, I don't think it's going to be the same as work, because I only see those people in this box,
But that's why I think that works better for your work than I kind of agree with Mike then, because I do think this is going to be kind of weird.
That's what he argued.
Well, and the only reason I say that is because to do that and to publicly tell people you're doing that, I just think would be a disaster. Now, I'm in terms of if I was involved in either doing it or people were in the St. Louis area or something, there's no way I would do it, because just knowing, again, I've been around the block a few times on Instagram. There's so many different groups of people that just hate each other.
Is everyone going to hate me for saying this live right now?
Well, but nobody's, the good
everyone's going to know. We're going to post pictures, I assume. I don't think this is a secret meetup, but now I'm regretting a little bit.
I'm just saying that if it was just kind of a casual meetup, because then it's well, I've had conversations before, let's say, with people you're probably familiar with or friends with or whatever, and I won't say names or anything, but we're like, wouldn't it be cool if we all got together? I'm like, well, initially we all got together. Yeah, that sounds really cool. Who are you going to invite? Well, I don't know. Let's invite so-and-so and so. I was like, oh, well, first of all, those two people don't like each other. Oh, they don't know.
Oh, and then God, what about, they're going to hate me for saying this out loud.
No, look, it's almost like you're writing it in a diary, doing it on this live, because nobody's going to see it. And I'm not going to cut it out. crop it or anything or clip it. I might.
This is the first time I've gotten nervous. Clip that
No,
little part.
no. Don't be nervous at all. I'm just saying, because there's always somebody you end up leaving out,
Mhm.
and then there's always somebody that not everybody has the exact same relationship as the ones that you're kind of thinking about.
Yeah. I mean, I assume this isn't a secret and that there would be like a photo posted, but maybe I was wrong and this is a secret.
No, but
also, people should know I'm so new to this game. I don't actually know the rules of engagement. Like, Brianna was like, "Are you sharing people's stories without tagging them?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm supposed to tag people." She's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, so like even now I don't always do it. It just feels like such an extra step." Like,
so you can get away for so long with being like, "Oh, I didn't know."
I know I really didn't know that. I shouldn't have said this out loud. If you're spoiling that was a secret, that's
No,
my bait.
I'm being the negative person, but I'm also being the one that's somewhat realistic too, in a sense that I don't know if there's a lot of people I do really like that I would love at some point if we had some kind of a get together.
Mm-hmm.
You can't Venn diagram this to where everybody's circle all comes together, and then other circles you kind of forget about certain people and then they take issue with it. Is it just the Atlanta area? But what if there's somebody within Georgia, or you know what I'm saying?
Okay,
It
you
just
got me all up in my head. I'm getting out of it.
Please
I'm
don't.
out of it because you are a negative Nancy on this topic, and that's okay. But I'm going to move back to where I started this from, which was I really do think that this is meant to be open. I do not think it's a secret event. I think it's genuinely just Instagram garden friends are actual friends, and we're super excited to meet up. We're going to a garden sale as a group and going out to brunch. And
how many people that you know? You don't even have to worry because you're not the one setting it up, so none of it comes down on you. How many people are going? Now I want to know. All right, whoever is the two people that are watching this, you have to promise
I'm
don't
never
say
invited
anything.
to anything ever again.
Don't say anything about this meetup that they're having. This
I thought this was public.
meeting of the cool kids in Atlanta. But how many people that you know
get
of
together?
are going?
Thanks, Elise. I have zero idea how many people are going, and I say that honestly. There's like I don't know. Oh God, I'm so uncomfortable.
No, but you don't know what you're doing, so that's fine. I'm just, how many people are coming to this?
I'll equate it to this, and thank you. I did think that when you shared someone's story, it auto tagged them. I learned from Brianna that like you don't say when you go out of town. And I was like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I didn't know that. I also don't, when I post things, it's live. I don't time it. Which, you know, I've been told by multiple people that's like bad Instagram behavior. And someone's like, you posted like 8 posts in a row. And I'm like, yeah, it's just like when I had time to post them. They're like, stop doing that. I was like, for who? You know, like this is for me. I don't get this is a garden journal for myself, and those that are interested in following it can read it. But like, I'm not timing the posts so they come in your feed in a convenient manner. Like,
well, this is all part of an episode that you had thought of that we were going to have. Is
which one?
Teaching Chelsea the unwritten rules of Instagram and social media.
Oh, let's do that episode because you have let's do that episode.
Well, how are we going to do it when you're at this fucking party?
It's Saturday.
With half the people that you're... Because...
Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed about sharing about the party. It's not a party. We're going to a garden sale. They better be sharing that we did this live. If not, you know, whatever. Okay, let's do that episode. I'm a noob. I don't know what I'm doing. Clearly, you have a lot of rules of engagement around Instagram.
But they're my rules.
I know, but that's perfect. Thank you, Elise. I break all the unwritten rules as well. But I want to hear, I think let's share your rules.
Can you come up with a list of things? Like, will your sister give you a list of things that she thinks you do wrong?
Oh, yes. Let's do the
And then
unwritten rules of Instagram.
and then
Of
we can all chime in on whether they're actual rules or not. Because we've
okay,
talked about before, can you send somebody a video message that you're not good friends with? All kinds of stuff like that.
okay. Let's do the unwritten rules of Gardengram, but let's not just do Brianna's. I think everyone should share their own rules. So Brian, like you bring a list of your rules. I will get a list of rules from Brianna because it's super clear that I don't have rules.
Well, I think she would know some that you've broken. So give her a couple days of writing out some things for you to bring to the table. And I want to weigh in on everybody's rules and whether or not they are legit or not, or whether they should be.
But you also have to bring your own rules. I think everyone needs to come with like at least 3 rules. I do have some rules. Like I do not, anyone who follows me, who follows a ton of people but has almost no followers, has no association with gardening, and has like 2 posts, I block.
Yeah. So that's a self.
That's my rule. That's one of my
Yeah.
rules.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I'm
one of
just
your
like,
rules.
you're clearly a creeper. That's my
There's
assumption.
personal rules we all kind of have that'll be, we can all throw that in there too. But I kind of like the episode being kind of focused on Chelsea in a sense that we're running her through Instagram boot camp or something, social media boot camp for Chelsea, and I can see the picture that we can do for the thumbnail. I'll have to see if any of your new ones. You're gonna be like, well, I don't know.
I have one of those.
I didn't know.
That's like a classic thumbnail I send you.
Okay. Did you get your fingers in the frame too, or am I gonna have to Photoshop your fingers in this time again?
See how it goes. No, I tried to get all my hands in, all the
I was
body
like,
parts.
Chelsea, can you send me some pictures? I need headshots. And she's, oh yeah, sure. This is like when we first started doing this, and she sent me some pictures, which are great pictures, but she was like doing stuff with her hands, but her hands were like off the camera.
I know. I'm looking.
And I was like, well, can you do the exact same thing, but like bring your hands in so I get your fingers, because it's gonna look weird on the thumbnail. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, she's like, well, I can't recreate my facial thing because I'm just not in the same mood. I'm like, well, okay, I get it.
I tried to recreate it. It was just not possible.
This is all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of doing a show with somebody. You got to come up with thumbnails, so you have to do pictures.
You have a photo of me going, what? And my hands in the frame. So you're good.
Right. So she's looking right now.
And here's what I think I'll do. I will do a post asking for people. I'll do like a story with the question thing, asking for people to send me their unwritten rules of Gardengram. Specifically, let's focus on the garden Instagram for this, because I think there's like Instagram rules that are different in different communities.
Sure.
You do one too. And then that will be our, exactly Elise's idea here. Those will be our expert rules. And then each of us will also bring some of our own personal rules. And then we are welcome to assess how many of the rules I have broken and how many you have broken. I'm sure I have broken all of them. Like, I didn't know I had to introduce myself before DMing people.
Oh, yeah. Don't give away too much then, because then we're not going to have a show.
I mean, I've probably just broken all the rules. Like, assume if there's a rule I've broken it, that's going to be the show.
Don't announce you're having a super secret party for just certain people.
Oh my God. And
let's
leave that all in here. That's the point. This is what inspired this game. That's clearly a rule. I clearly messed one up.
Okay, so that's the show. What's the name of the show then? So if I do the thumbnail, if I get some time here, I know the name of it. Chelsea's social media boot camp.
Social media boot camp. Breaking all the rules. The unwritten rule. I like the unwritten rules of Gardengram.
That's unwritten rules of but if we're saying Gardengram, does that narrow it down too much? I mean, I know that's what we're pulling from.
No, but I think that's like that is the Instagram community we're talking about. Make the name very clickbaity. How would you adjust the name?
I'm just afraid, because when we say the audience that we have, and sometimes we get way too focused on the actual, like the 3 people that are here, and that's the audience. But the audience as a whole has to be people that watch random clips of ours on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't want
Oh,
the thing to be like, well, if I'm not a gardener, I'm not going to click into this to watch it. That's my only issue. I don't mind us pulling from the garden community and saying that in the show. I'm saying for the thumbnail for the name of the show, I want it to be as broad
mhm.
as possible.
I I think unwritten rules of Instagram, because we are talking specifically about Instagram, and I do think different rules apply to different platforms. Like, we need to be specific enough that it makes sense. So to me, like, we are talking specifically about Instagram. While we are going to be talking about rules within one community, I would guess they could apply to different communities. So I think that's okay.
So you're saying unwritten rules of Instagram as opposed to unwritten rules of social media.
Or of Gardengram, because this isn't, to your point, like, this could apply to any community on Instagram. But I don't think this would apply similarly to any platform.
So unwritten rules of just Instagram then.
Yeah, because I think
Okay.
TikTok as a platform would have different rules.
Okay. And plus, not.
Definitely
I mean,
think YouTube has different rules as a platform. So we're talking about like the
for
Instagram
Instagram.
platform.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah. So the
I
unwritten
just,
rules of Instagram, and then we invite people that if you have a strong say or belief in some of the unwritten rules that either you go by or you think other people need to know, they need to come to our show Friday. Provided Chelsea fits us in to her schedule and it's not during the party that a bunch of you aren't invited to.
oh my God. Yeah. But I do think let's post questions on each of our pages to solicit the rules.
Right.
So if
Okay.
we can get some anonymously submitted rules, I will also ask Brianna for a list of rules I have broken.
Specific to you, right.
I will make a list of my own rules. You make a list of your own rules. And then the
Okay.
conversation is going to be like, hey, what are the rules we've collected, discussing them, discussing whether or not we've broken them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. I like this. I have the note. I have next steps. You have the image of me being confused.
Look, I mean, within 17 minutes, and I know we're running long, but in 17 minutes or so, 20 minutes, I think. No, actually, we started this segment with like 15 minutes to go. So whatever 15 plus 17 is, we put together what our next episode's going to be. We have a pretty good direction for it. We know how it's going to go. We don't know yet what time, but 7:15 Central Time usually for Friday. So Chelsea will get back to all of us here soon when she checks to see that there's nothing else that she's missing out on.
It's so true. It's honest.
It is. It's honest, and this is what people have to deal with when doing stuff with a partner.
Yeah.
You know, one partner just will sit and wait, and the other one is checking to see if there's anything else better going on. You're a channel flipper too, aren't you?
No,
You can't
I'm not a
stand.
channel
You
flipper.
got to just keep flipping until you find a show that's better than the one you're watching.
No, I like to watch things till the end. I was not a channel flipper. I was a guide person. I liked watching the guide. Like, I could just
Right.
watch the guide.
Right. And just seeing
Which is
all
weird.
the selection, just like, oh, I got to let it keep going because there might be a better show than
I
Harry
did
Potter.
do that. I'd watch the whole guide, but I wouldn't flip. I'd watch the whole guide and then pick what I wanted to watch and stay committed to it. Like, I used to watch it until it got to the end, so I hated those guides that went into the 600s because I was like, this is just the same.
It's like DirecTV. Then you're going through like all the Spanish channels and then through all the porn channels. And you're just like, oh my God, look at all this.
I know. I
Just
really
get back-
liked the guide channel though. Like, I like trailers, you know.
How many people are coming to, seriously, ballpark.
I'm not talking
10?
about it anymore until I learned the rules.
10 people?
I'm done. Oh God. Well, you know, we're gonna talk about this on either Friday or Sunday. I will confirm with you.
I will say
Lord.
I am looking forward to this episode because I am not going to hold back on these rules.
I think it needs to be, well, okay, let me double check my schedule, but I think it needs to be Sunday.
Just out of curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you're busy, you got a lot of stuff going on too, but I am curious if you were to take the reins of the thumbnail and the clips. I'm wondering if a different eye or a different style
Mm-hmm.
would have an effect on our post. I'm just curious. Not that I'm gonna offload this stuff for you to do for the rest of the time or
Yeah.
whatever, but I'm just kind of curious that maybe a different eye or somebody that just cuts it differently or designs the thing differently.
It would, being totally honest, I don't have time. Like I
That's
have to
fine.
wrap this up. But it would. I mean, it'd be fun. My challenge is I don't know when or how I'm going to be able to make time. Like that's the first thing I've observed is like
Mhm.
the quantity of these is a lot.
Well,
Um,
just for one episode.
yeah, if we did this episode next weekend, I would have time.
Could you do the thumbnail
It's just
for it or no?
trade-offs. It's like
Well, yeah,
trade-offs. It's
right.
like we're cutting into the amount of time I have left before our nanny leaves. I may have to find a new nanny. So it's like,
Well, then don't worry about it for this one. We'll
yeah.
discuss for another episode because I that's just out of curiosity. That gets back to the thing to where I feel like I get stale doing the same thing over and over again, even though it's a consistent look.
Yeah.
But maybe it does better cut from your perspective.
I mean, I could, what
Like
I'll
you're
do,
like for the this or that, it came down to what I thought that I wanted to cut. And I'm like, well, maybe you would have picked different questions to cut and cut them differently.
yeah. If I do, I would just need more time because everything's a trade-off. But I
Right.
gotta go now. Sorry, I had to cut it short because I only booked an hour for this, and now I'm 20 minutes over that. But no, right now I don't feel like I have time to do anything outside of these lives, which is a bummer. Just because it's cutting into
Well,
10
everything
is
else. Yeah,
so
no, I get
fun.
it. I get
Yeah.
it. But it's just it's part of and whether or not we make that into an episode down the road then. Because
Yeah.
I'm curious how things would look and the response it would get if it was done maybe by you. Because maybe if it's the same kind of response, and I can be like, oh, it's just a matter. We just have to do this longer. But I'm curious to where, well, if Chelsea did it with a different eye and different wording,
Well, let me do the next episode. We'll do it like that because then I can plan ahead. So this content episode, let's keep it for Friday or Sunday. I'm not going to build anything for it
okay.
per as we've been doing. And then
A
once we
Love Is
have the
Blind.
recording, no. Once we
Oh,
have the
okay,
recording for the unwritten rules of Instagram,
okay. Then you want to do the cutting of the clips.
yeah, I'll make
Okay.
the clips for the unwritten rules of Instagram. Does that work?
Yeah, and then what I'll do to save you some time is I will do the initial cut to where instead of just having just this frame here where it'll cut to a close up of us, I'll get all that done, and then all you have to do is just basic cuts
Okay, you can,
because
yeah.
that'll
But
save
I'll
you a lot of time. Plus, I don't know if you're set up on your system and know how to do that on your software because you got to take in the main feed, which is what everybody sees here, and then you have to take in your laptop feed and my laptop feed because that's the big picture.
I
Because that's how it. Oh, now I just. There we go. Sorry.
Here, let's wrap up now, but I'll do the clips for our next content episode. I'll do the post
She's wrapping up
production
now because
clips.
she's got to go
Yeah, I gotta go. I'm trying to get off
call
the phone.
Brianna and say, "Oh my God, am I not supposed to talk about
No,
this
I have
party?"
to go work. I have to go work. I'm not talking to anyone about that. I'm not bringing it up.
I may have missed somebody saying it. Because I have not been on.
I don't know what you're talking about. Never
Right.
heard of it.
Yeah. So whoever the three is on, don't
Never
say anything
about what?
about this party that not one of you are invited to. I guarantee you, not one of the three people that are here supporting Chelsea on her live.
I don't know what you're talking
None
about,
of you
Brian.
three are invited to this party that's not happening down in Georgia.
I have no idea what he's talking about. No idea.
We'll bring
Friday
it
or
up
Sunday.
Friday or Sunday.
Get
So,
all those unwritten rules. If anyone who's watching has an unwritten rule you want us to discuss, send it to us ahead of time. Put it in the comments here.
all right. I know you have to go. We have to do a teaser. Do you want to do that later?
No, let's do it right now. I have like 5 minutes. I'm just making
Okay.
sure we're wrapping it.
I'll kick it to you to describe what we're doing again.
Okay.
I think that works out. All right, Chelsea, Friday night we have episode 9. What we got going on?
Episode 9, we will be discussing the unwritten rules of Instagram and analyzing how many of those rules I've broken.
I think from the feedback you're getting from people, you've broken a lot of unwritten rules on social media, on Instagram specifically.
Maybe during this live, I've broken rules, I think. We'll see.
She has. Don't go listen to this live because she said something I think that she wasn't supposed to say to people. So
edit it out. Edit it out.
All right, so I think that was good. I don't think we need to run another one. There was nothing else.
I'm getting good at being Chris. Did you know? I'm like, I think about it.
Yeah, but it's now that you see how they come out as clips and stuff. But then that's where I say, because I know the clip I'm going to make, I can kind of direct you on what I want. If you start doing something, you're gonna know in the back of your head, and you're gonna probably direct me into saying, "Well, I need."
Yeah, 30 seconds, 10 seconds.
All right, so we got that, and then you're gonna let us know. Well, I said Friday, so it has to be Friday.
Yeah, Friday should work.
You want me to say this weekend, just in case?
Yeah.
And then I can just clip yours out.
Yeah.
And I'll just say it. All right, Chelsea, we have the next episode, episode 9, coming this weekend. What is it about?
Perfect. I'm laughing at the comments we're getting.
I would love to hear if the little teaser of Chelsea saying something she shouldn't gets more views. What does that mean?
Because I said that I should have said something I shouldn't have said in the teaser.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Of course she's going to get more views.
Also, this would be an easy combination with Chelsea. Do you care what people think about you? This whole segment flowed together. Like, we do have a plan. We just figured the plan out as we go through it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to hop off. I'll be really Southern. I'm going to let you go.
Well, you can't just yet. Let me.
No, I know. I'm kidding. I'm just, have you ever heard Southern people